Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into Novartis, specifically their Q3 and 9-month results for 2025.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here.
Definitely. We're not just reading numbers off a page. Our goal is to really understand the key financials, see which big brands are driving things, and maybe make sense of that clinical trial news for you.
Exactly. And the main story seems to be, well, successful execution. Novartis is showing solid sales, really strong core operating income growth for Q3. It looks like that pure play innovative medicines focus is working.
Right. They're generating serious cash and hitting pipeline milestones.
That's the combination they were aiming for.
Okay, let's start with the financials then, the health of the company. The numbers look good, but let's talk about the quality behind them. Q3 net sales were $13.9 billion. That's up 8% overall, 7% in constant currencies.
Yeah, and what's really telling, like you said, is the quality. What drove that growth? It was overwhelmingly volume contributing 16 percentage points.
16 points from volume alone.
Yes. And think about this. That's while absorbing a pretty big hit from generic erosion, about -7 points. So growing volume like that, despite generics, that tells you there's real demand for their newer stuff.
Okay, so strong underlying demand. And that flowed through to the bottom line.
It did. Core operating income hit $5.5 billion. That's up 7% in constant currencies.
Which suggests good operational control.
Absolutely. They managed higher sales, had lower impairments than last year, and here's the strategic bit. They absorbed higher R&D spending.
So investing in the future without killing current profit growth.
Exactly. That's crucial for that pure play innovation model.
And the cash flow. I mean, wow, 9 months, $15.9 billion in free cash flow.
It's huge. A 26% jump in USD compared to last year. Think about it, in just 9 months, they're almost at the level they hit for the entire fiscal year 2024.
That's incredible operational performance.
It really speaks volumes. And when you have that much cash, you have to talk about capital allocation.
Right. Where's it going?
Well, a lot back to shareholders. They paid out $7.8 billion in dividends just in the first half of 25. Plus, they're doing major share buybacks. Finished a $15 billion one in Q3.
$15 billion done?
And immediately started a new one, up to $10 billion. So, serious shareholder returns.
But they're also spending on growth, right? These bolt-on acquisitions. The Avidity Biosciences deal certainly caught my eye.
Yeah, that's the big one. $12 billion, all cash. It's significant enough that it actually changed their long-term outlook.
How so?
It boosted their 2024 to 2029 sales growth forecast, the CAGR, from 5% up to 6%.
Just for that one deal.
Well, Avidity is seen as really strengthening their hand in oligonucleotide and RNA therapies, targeting new areas in neuromuscular and cardiovascular disease. It's a platform enhancement.
Makes sense. But it wasn't just Avidity. There was Tourmaline, these licensing deals with Monte Rosa, Argo, Arrowhead. Sometimes those smaller ones get overlooked.
They do, but they're strategically important. Tourmaline, for example, adds depth in immunology, focusing on novel pathways. The Arrowhead deal. That reinforces the gene silencing tech, sort of complementing the Avidity move. It's about getting specific technologies, not just bulk.
Filling the gaps, basically.
Precisely.
And just quickly on geography, the U.S. was the engine again.
Oh, absolutely. U.S. sales grew 12% in Q3. It's driving 43% of their total sales now. It's still the key market.
Okay, solid financial base. Now let's get to the products driving that top line. Every pharma company has its stars. Novartis seems to have these, let's call them acceleration brands in Q3. Kisqali first.
Yeah.
Growth was just huge.
Massive is the word. Up 68% in constant currencies. It hit $1.329 billion in the quarter.
Wow. What's behind that surge? It's already a big drug.
Two things, really. First, it's just crushing it in the metastatic setting. It's got the leading share for new prescriptions across all lines in the U.S. We're talking like 52% in second line, 53% third line plus. Totally. And second, they're getting really strong traction from the launch in early breast cancer, which is a much bigger market potential. That's fueling the acceleration.
Got it. Then there's Scemblix for CML, chronic myeloid leukemia. That growth was even more explosive, 95% constant currency.
Yeah, almost doubled.
Why such high growth in CML? Isn't that a fairly established treatment area?
It is, but Scemblix has a differentiated mechanism. It often means better tolerability, deeper responses for patients. The unmet need is still there, especially in early lines where people want better options to avoid progressing. That 95% tells you physicians and patients are switching rapidly when they see a benefit.
So superior profile driving uptake. What about Kesimpta in multiple sclerosis?
Sure.
Also strong growth, 44% C, hitting $1.222 billion.
Kesimpta's story is really about convenience plus efficacy. High efficacy, good safety profile, that's table stakes. But the kicker is the at-home self-administration.
Avoiding clinic visits.
Exactly. For MS patients, that's a huge quality of life improvement. No infusions, less hassle. That convenience factor is really driving market share gains.
Makes sense. And the last big grower, Pluvicto for prostate cancer. Up 45% CC, $564 million. That's impressive for a radioligand therapy.
Yeah.
But supply, can they keep up?
That's the question for radiopharmaceuticals, isn't it? And they know it. The demand is definitely there, especially after the U.S. approval in the pre-taxane setting expanded the patient pool significantly.
Right, it opened up a lot more patients.
It did. So they've been very focused on scaling up manufacturing, adding capacity globally. They really have to because Pluvicto is unique. It's the only PSMA-targeted radioligand approved by the FDA and in Japan.
Okay, managing the growth challenge. But not everything was accelerating. There were some, let's say, challenged brands this quarter. Entresto stands out.
Yeah, Entresto, the cardiovascular giant. Sales were basically flat, up 1% USD, but down 1% in constant currency for Q3.
That's a sharp contrast to its history. What happened?
Yeah. It's almost entirely a U.S. story right now. Outside the U.S., Entresto actually grew strongly, but that growth was completely wiped out by the decline in the U.S.
Why did the U.S. decline?
Generics. FDA-approved generics have launched. Now, this isn't just standard competition. Novartis is fighting hard in court to protect its patents. It's a massive legal battle.
So the future trajectory hinges on that litigation.
To a large extent, yes. The outcome will be critical for Entresto's revenue over the next few years.
Okay. And the other one was Kesimpta in immunology. Sales also flat, down 1 per CCC. Was that a demand problem too?
No, and that's the key difference here. It wasn't about underlying demand. The flatness was mostly due to a one-off U.S. revenue adjustment, about $74 million.
Like a rebate adjustment or something.
Probably something like that, yeah. A financial adjustment, not a market share issue. If you strip out that noise, global sales growth would have been around 4% C. Novartis sounds very confident still. They're sticking to that $8 billion plus peak sales target for Kesimpta.
Okay, so a temporary blip, not a fundamental shift. Got it.
Seems like it.
All right, let's shift gears from current sales to the future pipeline. Because there were some really significant clinical updates this quarter, big news in immunology and rare renal diseases especially.
Yes, this is where you see the innovation engine firing. The standout has to be ianalumab. The phase 3 studies in Sjögren's disease, Neptunus 1 and 2, they hit their primary endpoint.
Okay, remind us Sjögren's disease. What was the endpoint and why is hitting it such a big deal?
Sjögren's is this chronic autoimmune condition, really debilitating systemic effects. The endpoint was the ESSDI score, which measures that systemic disease activity. The reason it's a huge deal is, well, this is the first time ever a study has shown a clinically meaningful benefit in Sjögren's.
The first ever, wow.
Yeah, there's a massive unmet need, no great treatments. So getting a positive phase 3 readout like this is potentially practice-changing. They're planning global submissions in the first half of 2026.
It's a huge validation for ianalumab. And it also worked in ITP, right? Immune thrombocytopenia.
It did. The phase 3 VHIT2 study for second-line ITP also met its primary endpoint. So yeah, ianalumab is shaping up to be a major future pillar for them in immunology.
Okay, immunology looking strong. What about the renal side? IgA nephropathy, or again.
Also really positive momentum there. The overall IgAN portfolio, that's Vanrafia plus Fabhalta, saw really rapid uptake. New prescriptions grew 98% quarter over quarter.
98%, compared to the market growing.
Only 23%, so almost 100% growth versus 23% for the market. That shows massive physician interest.
And that interest seems backed by data, especially for Fabhalta, the Applause-IgAN final analysis.
Yes, that analysis was important because it showed long-term benefit. It met its primary endpoint, showing a statistically significant and clinically meaningful improvement in the eGFR slope over 2 years.
Okay, eGFR slope over 2 years. Why is that specific metric so critical in kidney disease?
Because eGFR slope tracks how fast kidney function is declining. In IgAN, you want to slow that decline, preserve function, keep people off dialysis. Getting positive 2-year data, that's the longest renal function data we have for IgAN so far. It's strong evidence Fabhalta offers sustained kidney protection. It moves beyond intermediate measures.
Real clinical value demonstrated. And you mentioned Fabhalta has a clean profile.
Yeah.
What does that mean practically for patients and doctors?
This is like the aha moment for clinical use. It's an oral pill, which is good. But the really key things, no boxed warning,
Okay.
no contraindications.
Right.
and no required routine lab monitoring. For a serious kidney disease treatment, taking away that burden, the warnings, the monitoring is a huge differentiator. It makes it much easier to prescribe and for patients to take.
That sounds like a major advantage in practice.
It absolutely is.
Okay, so major wins in Sjögren's and IgAN. We should also quickly mention Kesimpta getting positive phase 3 data in polymyalgia rheumatica, PMR.
Right, PMR. That's the second most common inflammatory issue in older adults. Submissions planned for H1 2026 there, too.
And positive phase 2 for Votoplam in Huntington's. Good news across the board.
Definitely important pipeline progression, though the headline stories remain ianalumab and Fabhalta, I think.
So let's wrap this up. Looking across everything, the financials, the products, the pipeline, what's the big picture takeaway from Novartis' Q3?
Well, the core message is pretty clear. The financial performance is robust. You see it in the volume growth of drugs like Kisqali. You see it in that massive free cash flow. And crucially, their strategy, that focus on pure play innovation, isn't just talk. It's delivering tangible, significant clinical breakthroughs right now, especially in immunology and IgAN. It backs up their confidence in the full-year guidance.
Yeah, the execution seems solid. And thinking about those breakthroughs, ianalumab and Sjögren's, Fabhalta and IgAN, these aren't just incremental improvements. They seem to validate really targeted approaches in diseases where broader drugs haven't worked well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which leads to, a really interesting final thought for you to consider. We're seeing these precise mechanisms work targeting specific pathways, like complement and IgAN.
Right, moving beyond just general anti-inflammatories.
Precisely. So the question becomes, how much could the success here, validating these targeted approaches, fundamentally shift the whole landscape for treating autoimmune and these rare complement-mediated diseases in the next year or so? If precision medicine proves itself so clearly here, what does that unlock for other chronic conditions?